So I was assistant executive director at the time, and this student named Bruce Rogers from Stetson was graduating. He writes a letter to the office and says, "I'm going to ride my bike across the country." We sent him some material, and sure enough, he was able to raise some money. And the more we thought about it, we thought there's something replicable here. I wonder if we could get more guys that would be willing to do this, and we can come up with some kind of a fundraising model to make this a viable event for the organization. I had no cycling experience whatsoever, but I had a guy at my chapter, Jim Karlovec, who I remember was a cyclist. Flew up to meet with him, and I told him we'd love to do this fundraising event, this big cross-country cycling event. The only thing is, I don't know anything about cycling.
He told me a little bit about Bruce. I told him a little bit about what I and some other Delta Sigma Pi Caps were thinking about putting together a cross-country trip for a push, and it really just felt like fate.
He introduced me to Sally Schaefer, who was also a student at Bowling Green. We needed somebody to handle the media because we knew there would be a great story to tell, and we were fairly confident we could get media attention, which we did.
So they needed a public relations coordinator. I needed an internship.
There were obviously tons of logistics that we had to figure out. We're going to need meals and lodging for 60 nights or so. John Pierce, who I want to say had just graduated, came on staff, and we gave him a stack of yellow pages that we'd collected.
I applied for an internship at the Push headquarters, and I got it. And I said, well, what would that entail? Well, you travel all around the country, and you set up the logistics and help the guys and everything, and you kind of set it up as you go. And I was like, so you mean I won't be here in Morganton, I'll be out in like San Francisco and other places? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm in. We had such a unique mix. We had guys from Philadelphia, from Drexel, you had guys from the South, traditional, Pi Cap chapters, and just this, like how everybody kind of got along right away. It was a really fun group of people to be with.
So I was going to a chapter meeting, and we had a visitor from the national office. King Kaiser came down to describe Bruce Rogers' trip the previous summer. We
were doing 5 chapters a week for a semester. I had a slideshow, and I would tell the story and let them see images of these good things that were happening. But we just started pitching. We're going to do this national bike trip this summer.
And he just painted this story that connected with me in that meeting. And I had actually turned to another fraternity brother of ours and said, this is what I'm going to do for my next summer.
It was exciting to see the guys that saw that opportunity and took it. The first summer, more than anything, it was just about, can we get these guys across the country safely?
I planned the initial 3 routes for the Journey of Hope from an atlas. We made a decision to start the first trip out of San Diego specifically to avoid snow. And apparently we didn't think a whole lot about how hot it would be going through the desert in June or July.
We had 16 riders from all around the country with varying levels of skill sets. And it was pretty apparent that we needed to kind of come together as a team.
We got about a week and a half out, and then we were like, oh wow, like this is a thing, and there's a long way to go, and it's hot.
I was riding up a hill. It was like second or third day and coming out of California, and totally unprepared for the hill itself and how long it was and how steep it was. And I was out of the saddle, barely keeping my balance, going up this hill, and I see from the left side that there's this figure passing me. And I knew it was one of our riders. I was like, great, here I am getting past. I hear from the left of me, hey, get off your bike. And I look over and there's Eric Almquist. He goes, it's quicker if you walk it. And I look over to my left and there's Eric pushing his bike, walking uphill faster than I am pedaling at that point.
Then the big difference was there was no GPS, so we were literally using maps. And even though Jim had driven the route, roads were under construction, roads were closed. We were constantly like changing on a piece of paper, rewriting the new route and handing it out to people. And then marking turns so that people wouldn't miss it. Even despite all that, people still got lost. And those were the moments when you're hungry and you're hot and you're lost, where there was the most kind of pressure put on, are we going to make it or not?
people pulled through.
What stood out for me was how Jim Karlovec really was able to lead. You know, he was riding and planning, and he was still in school.
Two guys that really stood out in the 88 trip were Jason Meyer and Rick Guest. They really just led by example every step of the way.
Realizing that these other gentlemen were there to help everybody get across, made that part of the journey, much easier.
We didn't have the structure in 1988 that we clearly have today as an organization, as an event. However, that kind of let us do some things, shooting from the hip, if you will.
One of the support guys we recruited from Drexel in San Diego.
They came to us as riders and said, does anybody know anybody that doesn't have a commitment for the summer?
So you had to be 21 to drive them, and we didn't have enough 21-year-old drivers.
Listen, we need someone to drive support vehicles. You want to do it?
If we got you a ticket this afternoon, would you fly out here? And he goes, sure. And he lands, and he landed to a hero's welcome from us, because we knew we really needed this gentleman on our trip.
I can remember one time I pitched this hotel, and they said, okay, we'll think about it. What day are they going to be here? I'm like, oh, they're right around the corner. And they looked over, and the guys were like waving at them,
I think the biggest challenge was just the worry that everybody would be safe and that we would get to where we needed to go, and that somebody would be there to spread the message that we were trying to spread, because that was challenging. It was new, so no one had ever heard of us. So to try to tell that story.
16 cyclists in yellow shirts pedaled their way through Greenville during the lunch hour, part of a trip that began in early June in San Diego. They braved the heat of the American Southwest, and now they're trying to figure out the twisting roads of the South.
Just graduated this year from Villanova University, and before I wanted to start my career, I wanted to do something for others. So I saw the advertisements for this trip, and it was just a great way to spend the summer, see the country, and at the same time help out other people.
And Sally just did a phenomenal job hooking us up with TV, radio, newspaper, whatever it might be.
These college students are part of a team of 16 cyclists from Pi Kappa Phi fraternity chapters in 11 states. Each raised $2,500 per push before the trip even began.
To this cause, what do they do with it then?
We build something called a play unit, which helps stimulate the sense of the individuals we're trying to help. We work with individuals who are in the severe and profound range of mental and physical handicaps.
The cyclists say their main goal is to raise money for push, but they hope to do more than that.
We need to be aware of the needs of these people, being happy that we can function as individuals with all our limbs and our mind and bodily functions. We need to try and help these people who desperately need our help. The legislature, the Congress, Senate, whatever, is not going to go out and do things unless the population as a whole really backs these people.
Mm-hmm. As we're going through Charlotte, we were over near Belmont and went to Holy Angels. And the experience we had there was just amazing. They were so welcoming and so grateful for us to be there.
And that was always an interesting dynamic of the cyclists. They sign on because of how cool it would be to say I rode a bike across the country. I don't think they really fathom the friendship visits and that component until they get on the road and they start breaking down some of their own barriers and comfort zones and getting to know this whole incredible population that otherwise they might not have ever come across.
It's just a really special memory in my mind of the interactions and the impact that they can have on us, not necessarily that we can have on them.
There is nothing quite like being on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol when the team rolls in and the guys are crying and the parents and grandparents and girlfriends are crying and chapter brothers are giving hugs, and there's a great release and an outpouring of emotion.
The last 25-mile day that we had was just amazing. It was bittersweet, it was happy, it was everything. To know that we had ridden all the way across the country together as a team was very impactful for me.
I was so proud of the guys and so proud of being a part of this organization and what it stood for and how it really set our fraternity apart.
My happy moment was knowing that we pulled this off and knowing everybody was in one piece and that the future was in front of us. As we were working our way across the country in '88, it was hard not to think about what was next.
Especially for John and I, we couldn't wait to do it again. We couldn't wait to see, now that we knew what we were doing, we're like, we could do this way better, we could do so much more.
To me, I don't know if there's anything a whole lot more rewarding than that, to know that I helped create something that is helping people become better human beings and contributors to the greater good.
I don't think anybody realized that in 30 years, we'd be talking about that summer. But I think everyone realized that what was happening was pretty unique.
I think Pi Kappa Phi was ahead of its time in creating something like that. And from Bruce Rogers to Jim Karlovec to the people who put their heart, and a lot of people put a lot of sweat equity, as Ken used to say. The fact that it's still going on is just heartwarming.
I can't imagine these young men doing this summer experience without it being life-changing in one way or another.
Not a day goes by that I don't reflect on it in some way or another, because it's really embedded in who I am.
And for me, in particular, I learned how to get along with people. I learned patience. I learned empathy. I learned how to overcome large obstacles and barriers. And those are all life skills that you don't always just get. It impacted me in my career, how I am as a father, as a husband, as a friend, and a lifelong brother.
As I look forward and I think about the guys that come up through the program that cycle across America every summer on the Journey of Hope, if they get half as much out of it as I've gotten out of it, they've led a very blessed life.